Conan Chop Chop is here. The 4-player co-op game is available on all platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, PC and Switch, and I'm going to give you a breakdown of how to play the game, some top tips and what to expect. So yes, it's 4-player co-op and you get your choice out of 4 characters. Of course you can choose Conan, who's got a special skill of being able to jump forward and attack. He's what I would call the general adventurer class. Then you have Belit, which is a kind of roguelike character rolling around firing arrows as he uses his special abilities. Palantids is pretty much the tank character or class, and Valeria is very similar to Conan, kind of a ranger but also a bit more of a general adventure class. All 4 characters have some sort of dodge mechanic or some sort of dash mechanic, and you can unlock special ultimate abilities as you progress through the game. There is a little bit of a story. This game is not a fully open world, it's a procedurally generated tile system. Each time you play, the world will be in a slightly different order, but each time you play, when you die, you have to restart from the very beginning. Also, you do have to go through each and every biome to carry on progress. You can't start from a midway point or choose one biome over another. You always have to start by trying to explore the Darkwood first. You do have a NPC hub town. This is where you can pick up resources, new items, weapons and upgrade your skills. Meat is very important. It's basically how you replenish your health if you don't come across random hearts drops from enemies. There's a limit to how much you can carry, but you can upgrade that later on. There are traditional RPG levels in Conan Chop Chop. Every time you level up, you'll get a skill point that you can then go ahead and spend, and some of the skills, they do require multiple skill points. So at the beginning they'll only cost 1, then they'll go up to 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now skill points you earn can actually be applied to all of your characters. So I had spent a lot of time with Valeria. I gained 2 skill points, and as you can see I could go ahead and unlock some of the other character classes. So you want to max out a character's skill, then go ahead and get all your characters up to maybe level 5, and that should give you plenty of points to put directly into one character. Towards the end I'll show you exactly what a nearly fully upgraded character looks like, but you can increase things like how much health you've got, how much coins you start with and how many runes you hold, and extra skills. Opposite the trainer you have the blacksmith. The blacksmith is how you basically get access to new weapons. You will see you've got a small limited amount, and these are the types of weapons that can spawn in a world. You do also get other weapons that spawn, but generally the largest pool of these will be also spawning here. So you've got kind of like a special section that each time you do a run, some of these weapons will appear and you'll be able to buy them using gold. But you do need to unlock some of these, and that's where the special star metal comes in. You can see each armor weapon piece has a number underneath it, so you're going to need 10 star metal to go ahead and unlock that shield. When you unlock one of these, you can use it straight away and it will drop right in front of you. So don't store up too many star metals. Make sure you spend them as you get them to make that next run a bit easier and hopefully gain more out of it. Once unlocked, the items will appear in rotation in some of these areas here, and as you upgrade and unlock each section of the either armor, the weapons, you'll upgrade the buildings that you can see in ruin around you. This in turn opens up more slots on these little stalls, and you've got more choice in what you want to start out with. You have got a limited amount of gold, 400 and something, that you always start with, and you can't ever really increase that unless you go for a skill in the trainer that does give you an extra 250. And as said, you have got chances of getting more powerful gear spawning in these little stalls sometimes. It's not always directly related to what you've unlocked. So we'll come back to some of them skills and stuffs in a little while. Let's start exploring the world and taking you through the general loops. So each run you do, you'll always start at the mid-year. This has creatures like hornets as well as these slimes that generally will attack you. You've got 2 main weapons. You've either got your melee weapon and then you've got your bow. You'll also have a standard shield to use as defense to either parry or to hold and block. Pretty basic stuff. You know how to play, I'm sure you've been trying it so far. Obviously loot in the world does spawn inside different chests. You've got these ones here where you don't need any keys and you'll always get a key from them mostly, and then you've got special gold chests that do need keys to open. You need to build up gold reserves so that you can spend it at traders that you come across while exploring, and it's one of the most important features. Although eventually as you progress through you might find you've got an abundance of gold. It doesn't carry over to the next run. Every time you die you'll lose all your gold. What does carry over is the star metal. A big massive tip is to always make sure you've got at least 1 piece of meat. You'll often be able to buy some at traders that you come across, and always make sure you destroy any barrels, chests and pots to get some extra gold. And I guess that's a big general tip. Spend your gold as soon as you can. Don't wait and hold it for too long. If there's something there, try and grab it now rather than waiting and waiting for something good to come along. If it gives you any kind of bonus or buff, make sure you pick it up, whether it's armor or some sort of new rune. Some stuff might not particularly suit your playstyle, but you can get some really great actual combinations, which I'll probably go through in another video. Although be warned, there was a few bugs in the build that I was playing where some of the items that I bought, especially runes, weren't actually equipping. You can swap out items when you buy them as well. They'll drop on the floor and you can just choose to pick up the sword or swap it over for something different. Once you actually get into the Darkwood area, this is where you'll get some dangerous creatures and enemies. Guys that drop the bombs, which you quickly have to dodge out of the way, and these guys which do usually one big hefty melee attack. A really good combination I found early on was poison. Anything that gives you passive buffs or bonuses when you attack creatures or enemies. You can upgrade Valeria so she does a bleed effect on creatures. Combine that with something that does poison damage, and you can also find armor and shield that also amplifies how much poison damage you do. This is the kind of stuff you need to be looking out for. Maybe you're not that keen on having a spear, but it does give you extra poison damage up to 30%. It's probably worth using it, especially if you've got something else obviously giving that poison damage. You can see I'm pretty close to death here. You do obviously need hearts to replenish, and sometimes you can get them from enemies or in chests. But don't be too scared of using any meat up. If you've got it, absolutely use it. The more time you spend playing it, the further you get, the more XP you're going to get, and that means you'll be able to get even more levels up in the future. You'll come across a bunch of chests locked behind these fences or behind stone pillars. I thought it was tied to multiplayer, but instead it's actually a skill that you can unlock later on where you'll be able to blow them up. It kind of sucks for now. You'll need a fair few skill points before you can get to that stage, but yeah, pay them no attention. There's no secret ways to get into some of them areas. Generally, when you come across an area with lots of enemies, they'll hopefully have some decent rewards like a gold chest with some decent extra big dealing weapons. These will persist even when you move to the next tile, which obviously by now you've worked out you can't move until you've cleared all the enemies. The yellow dots that you see on the tiles mean that there are other areas to explore, but generally the path that you need to follow to get to the first boss fight will be the white dots. This changes when you get into the temples. Within each one of these worlds you'll find a temple or dungeon that actually houses the boss fight. So if you see a dot on a wall and you haven't seen a room next to it, that means you haven't gone through it yet. So it can be well worth going back to a trader sometimes if you've gone and explored more tiles and see if you've got enough coins now to go ahead and get one final upgrade. None of the upgrades will carry over with you. It's literally about using it mostly when you're going on this one run. There are some alpha variants. They'll basically be covered in a red glow, so be careful for them. They'll hit harder and they'll definitely do a lot more damage. Eventually you'll come to the tile with the actual temple or dungeon and look out for chests that can be hidden by the scenery. You'll notice inside the actual tile on the minimap, it will show you whether or not there's chests on that tile. Learning how to use your dash attacks or dodge attacks is really important. A lot of skills and buffs give you extra damage when you use them, and it's really important also to make sure that parry is a big focus too. Lots of the shields and armors will give you more bonuses for parrying rather than defense. You'll also get a whole bunch of stuff that gives you extra critical damage. So again, it's worth making sure you spend a bit of time looking at them, tinkering around and seeing what works. Generally, you'll only get maybe one dash before it replens, and then you can get armor and weapons that increases that, so you can have even 3 or 4 dashes that will do extra damage or get you out of trouble. Each character's is slightly different, but they generally do the same thing. Pretty obvious by now, but the blue bar is that dash ability. Whenever you take a hit or parry successfully or defeat creatures, you build up your kind of rage meter, and that's the glowing blue bar around Palantis here, or yellow if you're Valeria. When it's full, you can go ahead and unleash a special ability that normally does a huge amount of damage to any creatures or enemies nearby. You'll find as you progress plenty of armor and weapons that will fill up that rage meter. You can get heart upgrades as you explore, and this is one of the zones, and you sometimes find these, but not always guaranteed, in each one of the biomes, and it will increase the heart for this run. To increase your hearts permanently, you can only get that by unlocking one of the skills at the trainer at the hub. If you are on health and you do know one of these is around, it's worth visiting it quite last, because once you pick it up, it will replenish all your health as well as give you an extra heart. You do also sometimes have a random chance of finding a mini boss. Again, it will have a creature bigger than some of the others and it will do a lot more damage. They'll often be guarding special golden chests again with high or better gear, so it may take a few beatings, but it's worth taking them on, especially as you get all that star metal too. There are rarities just like you would expect, maybe uncommon and then rare and then you've got epic. So although a weapon might not do as much damage or as much DPS, the other perks that it might have will really make sure it's a better weapon to have than some of the others. It all just depends on your build. So I told you earlier that some places you won't be able to get into until you get a skill, but if you notice 3 stones like these, you can actually blow them open with a bomb. You do have a bomb, but it needs the yellow bar underneath you to be full before you can activate it, and generally you can only activate once before it replens. This is also basically your ammo use for arrows, so once that goes down, you'll have to wait until it replens before you can fire any more arrows too. Shooting in this game on a controller is pretty poor. You have to use the actual left stick holding LT to aim and then tap the right stick to actually aim and fire the weapon at whatever creature you're facing. There really should be a button that you can press just like there is when you're normally attacking. It's kind of meant to be like a twin stick shooter, but I found on PC it was a bit unresponsive. So hopefully they bring in something where we can change that in the future. Once you go into the temple, that's it. You're locked in there until you either die or you complete it. When you successfully defeat a boss, you'll actually carry on progressing with everything that you've earned. So you will go back to the hub area where you can upgrade, get some new replay items and stuff, and then take on the next biome. With the idea being that you'll defeat all 4 bosses in one run before taking on the final boss. Generally, the temples and dungeons will have much harder difficulty creatures and enemies, so sometimes you're going to have to explore more tiles just to maybe try and pick up more healing items or get lucky in finding a trader. It is randomly generated, you'll never get the same run twice. Lots of enemies do area of effect. They can spawn right underneath you, so it's always a good idea to make sure you've got a dash ability ready to go so you can get out of the way, or using the right moment for ranged attacks. Eventually you'll unlock much better bows, be able to hold runes that give you more ammo, and you can really customise and create a build you want. Although unlike a lot of other roguelikes, it's not as maybe customisable as you would think. A lot more in Conan Chop Chop relies on random luck, rather than necessarily you building the perfect character. You will come across lots of traps in the game as well. These are activated whenever there's enemies left in the tile, so as soon as you destroy all enemies, the traps will no longer activate. Enemies can activate the traps as well, so you can actually get them to kill themselves by falling on some of the ones that shoot up spikes and stuff. You can see this rune that I've got here, Trap Ward. You can pretty much swap in and out any of the runes that you find, and you can upgrade the slots, so eventually you can hold up to 5, I do believe. Be on the lookout for certain creatures that will spawn when you've defeated them. Sometimes these little brains on legs will appear, and if they jump on top of another creature, they basically make them much harder to defeat with bigger health pools and stronger. So always try and defeat those brains first. They won't do you any harm while they're running around, but they do make other creatures tougher to beat. Don't waste your time looking for secrets or doorways or anything like that. There's not really much of that going on, which is a bit of a shame. There's no sort of extra areas that you'll discover by going through secret doorways or pulling levers. There is a kind of long-standing quest where you pick up an item in one biome that sometimes randomly generates. So in this instance, we're looking for basically a child's doll, and then when you return that to the village later on, it will then give you another item in return for giving the doll over, and then that will give you access to a special area randomly eventually in the next biome, which is the desert biome. And then it pretty much carries on. The item that you get in the desert biome will then give you something to access in the next biome, etc, etc. It is randomly generated, so it might take a bit of a while. Anywho, back to the dungeon. Eventually you're going to come face to face with the boss. Make sure you destroy any pots just in the room that you'll always know you're about to face him with, because it's got his symbol on, and you might get lucky and get some hearts to replay before facing against him. In the first one, it's going to be Fak. He's a pretty mean gorilla god. He does big melee swipes at you, so you always need to make sure you're kind of walking away from him as best as you can. And then he does this action. When he's finished, he'll basically knock himself out, and this is when you need to go and attack him. You can do a huge amount of damage to him. I've sped up the footage here. This was genuinely my first attempt at taking him on, and you can see I'm really not doing too much damage to him, whittling away at one of his health balls. Each time it gets to the gold marker, he'll go through another stage where his attacks will increase and he'll do a bit more damage. The idea is you're not meant to defeat him on your first go, unless you've got really lucky with some runes and weapons that you've come across and gold. It will get better as you unlock more skills, and it will get easier. I didn't have any healing items here, so I was kind of in trouble and I was definitely not going to succeed on this run. I did get him down to his last health portion, and you can see he does a much bigger attack. And this is pretty much the same system for all the bosses. I've got all the way up until the ice biomes boss now, but that's for another video. Don't worry, won't finish it on defeat. I will show you what it's like when you've actually defeated him. Just give you a heads up what to expect. You'll see how much damage you do, enemies slain, the gold collected, and it does increase your levels. It's really important to try and get to the bosses rather than maybe exploring some of the other zones. From what I can tell, you get more XP by making it to the bosses. Obviously, it's beneficial to defeat them as you'll get even more from them as well, and you get a whole ton of the star metal as well. So one aspect I wasn't that keen on with the game was that you have to buy all the weapons or all the armor pieces in a run before you unlock the next lot. I kind of would have preferred just to be able to pick and choose and spend maybe more of the star metal on something I really wanted. So you do have to farm hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands of star metal to access all the different runes, charms and shields. I realise I have been calling them runes, but they are actually charms. So the game does get pretty grindy. You're going to have to be in this for the long haul if you want to experiment and try it as much as possible. And it will get better once you've opened up more of these stalls, but it is a bit frustrating in the early game. It's definitely not as customizable or approachable as other roguelikes that I've played. A few general tips on our second run with Palantis is make sure that you get characters or creatures that can come and fight for you. A lot of the charms or runes will give you things like maybe a pig that will help defend you, or a slime that will help attack, or even a chicken. They might seem a bit comical, but they can really help out. They either distract a lot of enemies and you can go in and do damage, or in case of the slime, if you actually walk over him, you will actually gain a quick speed boost. You've got basically pink slime underneath your foot. Round 2 of FAQ with Palantis, I had a much easier time. I managed to pick up this charm that has a sword that goes around in a circle, and I managed to get the poison actual charm or rune or buff. So this meant that every time I used the actual circling sword, it would do a poison buff, plus my own attacks would also do poison buffs that do stack. It can make such a difference getting a lucky combination of some of these. I had a much easier time this on my third attempt and second time at taking FAQ on, although I had played the demo a couple times as well. Your reward is usually another charm or runestone and a whole ton of the star metal and gold. And like I said, you carry this over, your run doesn't stop, you go and unlock the next area and hopefully get through and carry on. The doorway should open, but somewhat annoyingly, any experience you've gained, you won't actually get until you die. So you can't go and level up your skills until you finish this run completely and you've restarted again with your second character. But you should unlock the next area cough, and that's pretty much where I'm going to leave you today. Just to show you what it looks like. I only need one more upgrade before I can do the fully upgraded character. You do get extra bonuses and buffs to your skills and your ultimates, extra health, extra meat, and some abilities. In Valeria's case, it's been able to move a bit quicker. And just to show you a little bit more in terms of the blacksmith, the different armors, weapons and charms that you get. It's a bit annoying as well that you don't get to see the charms on this page. You can look at everything you've unlocked by looking at the collection, but you have to press the pause menu to go and take a look at some of that stuff. You should find a tab called collection and that will show you everything that you've already unlocked. Because as soon as you unlock something, it pretty much disappears from this list. As you would expect, the upgrades get more and more expensive, and you can clearly see you might need more than 10,000, possibly even more, of the star metal to fully upgrade absolutely everything. And this is where the game kind of just falls down a bit for me. I'll talk more about this in my review, but it doesn't really give you enough choices in starting out. It's still random on what the shops will generate or the stalls will generate. And although if you buy something, you'll actually get that stall to regenerate an item straight away, you don't have enough gold in the beginning stages, so it's never really beneficial. So the only way you can really guarantee to start off with something like this is by keeping some of the star metal and buying that particular weapon to use on your next run. Don't do what I did a lot, which was stock up a lot of star metal and buy it all in one go, because you won't be able to carry or use all them weapons and then you kind of get lost. You won't be able to use them until you find them again randomly. That tip is definitely going in my 10 things I wish I knew first. Anyhow, more guides coming. I've enjoyed the time of it. I don't want to sound like I haven't, but yeah, there's definitely a bit of an up and down with this game. So hopefully this has given you an idea what to expect, some tips, and if you do like the idea of it, then let me know what character class you're going with and what combinations you think are best. If you love the world of Conan Exiles and Conan in general, check out my main survival channel with 170,000 subscribers. I've done hundreds of videos on Conan Exiles over the years, so go and check out if you want to explore that game as well. Until next time, laters.